David Alemian, and I want to welcome you to the David Alemian Show. And joining me today is Reno Olivera. He is a helicopter manager type 2, helicopter heli-tac crew in Montana, Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, Southern Land Office. He's a firefighter and training officer on the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department in Laurel, Montana. And as LVFD's training officer, he leads both general and rookie school classes covering wildland, structural, rope water rescue, medical assistance, and more. Recently observed training new recruits alongside Battalion Chief Shane Willis, reinforcing fire ground skills. He's a member of the VFW Post 3177, that's Veterans of Foreign Wars, in Laurel, Montana. He's active volunteer educator during LVFD Rookie School, coaching emerging firefighters. He's a former combat camera specialist in the U.S. Marine Corps. Thank you for your service, sir. And documenting fireline operations in Montana and possibly deployed environments. On Instagram, credited with pioneering the first camera operator on the Fireline in Montana, building a program to spotlight wildland firefighting, managing MTDNRC's helicopter base, leading as training officer and active firefighter at Laurel Volunteer Fire Department, and supporting and mentoring new fire personnel through structured training. Personal highlights. He combines aviation management with hands-on training and frontline firefighting. Former Marine with strong visual documentation background in high-risk environments, and engaged in both veteran and local community networks. Now, I have something to ask you, because I've got a lot of questions to ask you, Reno.
Yes, sir.
From combat camera to heli-tac, you began as a U.S. Marine combat camera specialist and now manage a heli-tac helicopter base. What inspired you to transition from visual documentation to aviation and frontline firefighting? What was what motivated you or inspired you to make that transition?
Yeah, I think the simple answer is, I served in Iraq back in 07 and 09 in the Marines, and I did a lot of more internal type documentation work. And afterwards, I worked for Fox Sports News, and I even did a lot of audio visual stuff for Boeing. And I kind of fell off when I started my business. And when I came back, the chief of the fire department came to me and said, "Hey, do you want to be part of a family of dysfunctional people again?" And I was like, "Well, absolutely, I do." And from that, I just built my career in fire and still building it, having that camaraderie and that build basis. You hear it from veterans all the time, especially from that combat era when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, that having that camaraderie build up. So that's one of the biggest things for me. And then just having that involvement in the community. With me being the helicopter manager, I actually run a crew on the Type 2 helicopter out here in Montana in the Southern Land Office. So we actually cover 12.5 million acres just in this area in Montana, just on that helicopter.
That is a massive area. Now, here's another question. Pioneering fireline photography. You're credited with being Montana's first camera operator on the Fireline. How did you develop the program? And why is it important to showcase wildland firefighting visually?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people don't have a full understanding of what it is to fight fires. I mean, me as a young firefighter still myself, I'm still learning fires and all that. The audio visual stuff, it was actually last year we had flown to a fire. It called the Barber Draw Fire. It went from 15 acres to 7,000 acres, in the matter of like 4 hours. Our helicopter couldn't even catch up with it. Oops, I'm sorry, my phone went off. And we landed, and what's called PIO, one of the representatives from there, they're the Public Information Office for the DNRC for the state, had seen me and heard about me and heard what I did in the Marines. and said, hey, we would like to develop a program to kind of encompass, telling the story of your firefighters and telling the story of what the state does in conservation, all the different factors that make up not just firefighting, but forestry and how we can prevent fires and all those courses. And I was like, well, I happen to have the experience. I'd love to build it up. One of the best things that came from that was this last 6 months after we were kind of a little bit on a lull from fire season. Obviously, we get the white stuff here, so um, I started building the SOPs and started really diving in and saying, all right, cool. It's really dangerous putting a cameraman on the fire line because fire activity is always, it can be futile, it can be indifferent, based off of weather and everything of that sort. How do I make it the safest operation, and how can I tell their story from on the line rather than away from the line, as we see on a lot of media outlets and all that. So to answer your question, yeah, it's been a process. We're just implementing everything that we're doing with it, and I think it's going to go really well.
So, what would you say are the daily challenges as helicopter manager? I mean, leading a Type 2 helicopter helitac crew involves high stakes, coordination. What does a
Yeah,
typical or non-typical day look like for you? A day in the
yeah.
life of Reno.
Yeah, absolutely. So out here in Montana, we have what's called where when the fire season essentially kind of hits, we'll call it severity. When severity hits, we pre-position in at the hangar up at Billings Airport, pre-position, and then when fires in our area are called, the locals will actually call those fires, and we will fly over to them and do that. So in a day-to-day basis, the day of the life of Reno. We start out, we do our initial checks. We'll do some physical training, do some actual fire training, and then kind of just pre-position and wait for any fires. We do lookouts, weather checks, and everything else like that, and path checks for how we need to get to a fire if we do, depending on weather or everything. So we get called up, dispatched to a fire, light the rotors up, have a good solid plan, get the field truck driver and the helicopter over to the fire, land, configure buckets, and help out on the fire line. Um,
So, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, nope, go ahead.
You speaking of training. What about training the next generation? As LVFD's training officer, you teach everything from rope
Yeah.
rescue to medical assistance. Which module do recruits find most challenging, and how do you keep them motivated?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure too much on the modules. It's more so what I like to call that low frequency, high risk type stuff that they'll find challenging, whether it's in a motor vehicle accident when we have to extricate, or if we have to extricate multiple um, victims out of a vehicle. We don't see that too often. So we have to make sure we're maintaining that training for those low frequency, high risk type situations. Um, it can be, I mean, just like my interest grew in wildland, but I also love structure fire too, because they're two different environments. But I call it, we've heard it before, trickle down training. Try to train everything that you know in your head to those below you, and get them set up for success for the future. It's easier said than done.
Sure.
When I became training officer, and I worked myself up to it. It's funny, I can go to an engine and operate everything like that, but how do I translate that into something that I can teach somebody and give them the right words so they actually learn it? And that's been a challenge of mine too. So to answer your question, like what is like one of some of the most challenging things to train some of the younger generations? It's literally just being able to translate what I have in my head down to them and getting them to fully understand it.
Volunteer firefighter retention
Hmm.
is a big issue. I mean,
Yeah.
volunteer departments nationwide face a lot of turnover,
Hmm.
and the majority of firefighters across the country are volunteers. So let me ask you, in your experience, what factors convince new recruits to stick with LVFD long term? Because based on what you're telling me, it's not easy.
Yeah. No, the factors that this is an easy question. We talk about this all the time. Leadership. If your top leadership isn't supporting the bottom half, the most important half of that department, you'll see a lot of guys not have that, not being able to build that camaraderie and building up that team. And that's a big thing that we've been even building in Laurel at the volunteer station. And we're starting to see a lot more involvement. We're building the teams. We're showing them how important they are, and we're revolutionizing the training and having more, on-site type training rather than death by PowerPoint type stuff. Bringing in those subject matter experts that actually know what they're talking about, and really diving into that. And for a volunteer station, I feel like Laurel, we're doing a really good job in advancing our firefighters. And so advancement in their skill sets, good leadership that doesn't micromanage too much, but micromanages enough to set you up for that next level. And just, being that family, being that hardcore, true to the core, loyal and family. Yeah.
Years ago, I spent some years in a rural community. I mean, it was the middle of nowhere. I mean, great people, wonderful people, but not a lot in a small area. I mean, they were just spread out, right? So you don't have a lot of people to draw from when you're trying to recruit in a rural community. So, like a rural community like Laurel, Montana, has its own unique dynamics. So, how do you attract individuals to volunteer firefighting in a small town setting? Because you need people.
Yeah. For us, I guess for me more specifically, the most important factor is them seeing what we're doing and how we're being involved in the community. Not only are we firefighters, we're community servants too. Out here in small town Laurel, yes, we're right next to Billings, which is the biggest city in Montana, but the biggest city in Montana equates, I think I just went to Texas, and like their 30th smallest city wasn't Billings was nowhere near that size, so
Right.
it's smaller, right? But like they see the things that we're involved in, and one of the biggest things we have out here is 4th of July. We do the fireworks out here. It's one of the biggest fireworks in the whole area, and people come from all over the place to come see our fireworks. The fire prevention type committees that we have, and how we get involved with the communities, and whether we're doing home assessments to help them better, mitigate their houses for when the fire season does come, or just getting out there and talking with them. I think that's like one of the biggest things is that community involvement. And then we will run into, those younger kids that are just graduating high school, and they're interested, and they really want to be incorporated in part of a team, and want to do something. So I think that's the best thing that we can do is just that continued community involvement, and that's how we recruit more.
Having a presence at community events.
Yep.
Totally get it.
This weekend, Laurel, we have next to ours. It's ran by Laurel, but it's ran by all the fire departments. We have the Montana State Memorial, and it'll be myself, and a lot of fire departments around the Yellowstone counties, and the counties that surround Yellowstone will be there to honor the I believe it's 3 firefighters that we lost in Montana this last year. A couple of us I'm one of them. I'm on the flag detail crew. And so we bring people together that way so they can see, hey, we're honoring our firefighters who died in the line of duty. And,
Wow. They need to be remembered.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you about the influence that your time in the service as a veteran, how it influences you today. As a VFW Post 3177 member and former Marine, veteran camaraderie runs deep.
Yes.
So how do your military experiences affect or influence your firefighting leadership?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, definitely. How it affects that is I think, a couple things like I talked about. I know how to build a team. I want to be a team and have that loyalty and that trust to your person to the left and to the right of you. Understanding the chain of command and understanding respect are a lot of huge things. And understanding purpose. Those are some of the best things that I feel transition back over. It's a completely different thing too when it comes to, transitioning from military into fire. Like I'm used to running and gunning in fire or in combat from the Marines. Then you go into fire and they're like, hey, don't run on the fire line. It's like, oh, why am I not running? There's fire over there, and they want you to kind of take your time and assess
Sure.
everything and say, hey, we're going to be safe here. That fire is going to burn. We're going to be able to find the right tactic to take it out. And sometimes, Mother Nature humbles you pretty good and realizes, hey, I'm just a human being.
Right.
But but the paramilitary tactics are pretty much the same you know, between the different services. And I feel like that transition between military into fire, both for personal and professional reasons, are, from the military. Personal, hey, I get to be with my buddies, and we get to be down in the trenches fighting fires together. Professional, just building it up. Like I just got promoted to that helicopter manager position. I'm working on my engine boss qualifications, and constantly moving towards that advancement and building the career too.
Which brings me to cross-functional leadership. Juggling aviation management,
Hmm.
frontline response, as we were just talking about, and training demands versatile leadership. I mean, there's different types of leadership in all of those things. So how do you prioritize and delegate across those roles? I mean, how do you separate them
Absolutely.
and focus on one and then the other and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a team to build a team, right?
Yeah.
Like in Laurel, I have three training aides that I'll delegate down, and I'll train them and teach them how to move things. My calendar is my best friend because there's all sorts of colors on it, and I'm constantly trying to readjust something because I'm extremely busy, not only just in fire, but I also run my own nonprofit business as well too. So juggling that. So again, like I said, it takes a team to build a team. I have a team, and we separate our responsibilities, and we make sure that we're handling those responsibilities, at the utmost quality, that effective and efficiency over there. To more so answer your question, I'd say, like balancing it out, it's never going to be 100% balance, right? We're always busy. Fire season hits, and then we're running and gunning, with fire season, and kind of forget, oh, we should have trained on, the eight line and the more the medical stuff a little bit more, or we should have more so concentrated on the physical fitness of the crew, and there's some things that you slip. Then that's why you want to concentrate on developing those after action reports and reviews, and sitting back and looking in the mirror and going, all right, what did I do wrong? And actually being able to be honest with yourself, and in instances you might have messed up on. Hopefully that answers your question. I know there's a lot to it, especially from the complexity of, going from being a training in structure fire to training in wildland. Those are two different components, although fire within itself, acts the same way, but it acts different in each of those environments. So yeah, the switch is hard. Like for me, I mean, even this year since January, I think I've probably already put in 430 hours worth of training just for me personally that I have logged in. And
That's a lot of training.
making yeah, it's exhausting. I have some aviation training over in Helena this next week, and hopefully I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break so my brain can kind of process everything. But yeah.
You talk about balance, which brings up another balancing act, risk and safety, right?
Hmm.
Helicopter operations and ground rescue have inherent dangers. I mean, it's just not
Hmm.
safe, right?
Yeah.
How do you foster a culture where safety and bold action coexist?
Yeah, that's the ever-going question right there, right? Safety is paramount, but and even in our IRPGs and by our codes that we follow, we got to fight fire aggressively, but we have to be safe in the same context. Um, to foster that, I mean, it's the constant implementation of training. You can never train exactly what you're going to see on the fire line, but you can get pretty close. Another thing we do too is just maintaining our crew and understanding where they're at, because we might be working a 14 days in a row. We might be exhausted, and we actually have documents that we'll fill out and say, hey, how are you feeling today? Are you kind of, you're on day 14, you look pretty exhausted. Hey, the whole crew's exhausted. hey, this is a go, no go situation, and we're probably not going to go today, or we're going to give our crew some time to relax and maybe bring in some replacements. So then that way they can come in fresh. And as we've seen, in fires across the nation, there's not enough resources out there.
No, there aren't.
Um, and so there's certain times where we're going to be exhausted. The firefighters are going to be exhausted because, they're going on that day 14. And as we know, the different agencies work different. They'll might do 12 days and do 2 days off, or 6 days and 1 day off, or however they do, however they manage their schedule. But when it comes to actually implementing that safety, and we hear it all the time, we hear it in the military, we hear it, and you don't see it until you actually a part of it. Training and taking care of your crew. Those are the big things.
Frontline adrenaline and reflection. On the fire line or in the cockpit, you get adrenaline rushes. You must.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe a moment when you had to step back and make a critical strategic call?
Yes, absolutely. I got a couple of them. One,
let's talk about a couple of them then.
yeah, I mean, one of the biggest ones, we had a crew that's over on the west side of Montana came over and helped us out, and so the difference between west side and here, we have more like flashy type fuels, like the smaller, like wheatgrass and cheatgrass and juniper, smaller stuff, more flatlands. Where over there, they're in the mountains. And so there's more timber type firefighting. So there's two different firefighting tactics already right there. So
Sure.
then they came from the west side over here to the east side, and seeing how fast those fires will grow, kind of, put that moment into their head, into, like, it was one of the manager's heads, and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I was like, that's perfect. Like, this is a perfect opportunity for you to see how our fires are. I was like, we don't hit these head on and we don't chase after them. They'll run from you. The wind, it obviously, is a big factor. And they'll flash, and they flash hot and quick. And he was asking me for advice, even though he was more of a superior at that time. He was asking me for advice because I had actually, I've seen those types of fires. Just
You
like
had the
if I went on the
experience on
west.
that kind of fire.
Right. And so it was a moment for me to kind of step in and say, hey, here's kind of some of the tactics and how we operate over on this side. And it was a moment right there where he realized, okay, yeah, I mean, different areas, different types of firefighting, different people, all those factors. So it was kind of having that ability to say, hey, I know you're my supervisor, but can I instill a couple of things into you just so you're aware? And safety component right there. And then on that same fire, we had enough resources coming in, enough engines coming in, and doing a really good job, and they actually buckled it up pretty well. Well, the winds decided to shift while we were loading back up on the helicopter, and shifted on that side, and a flame front came right in, and I wasn't even in the helicopter. I had to jump into that helicopter and get buckled up real quick, and we were flying right over that fire as it was coming in, and you seen all the cavalry coming in and taking over, and that's not so much a critical, like, hey, I had to make that decision, because it's either jump in the helicopter or maybe get burned over.
Sure.
Those are a couple of instances that I really like had to be tested, and as I've said before, I'm still really young into fire, and I have a lot to learn. And I've got a really good crew, and as you were saying, the generational differences. Some of my crew that are above me, they take me in, they let me ask questions all the time, or I'll be like, hey, I'm trying to do a training, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it the safest way but most effective to get them prepped up for that fire. How do I do it? And then they'll bring me under their umbrella and say, hey, yep, have you tried this? No, I haven't tried that. Or they'll teach me some stuff, and it's really good to see the upper generation teaching me, so then I can teach the newer generation.
That's how it works. That's how it
Yep.
works.
Yeah.
Speaking of generations and switching gears a little bit, community engagement beyond the fire line. You're active in local education and community networks. How
Mhm.
does that broader engagement help you recruit and keep or retain volunteers?
Yeah. So you're kind of more so asking how our community involvement
Yeah, like when you get
allows us to
involved out in
recruit.
the community and you're interacting with young people and they're asking you what's it like to be in a helicopter and fighting fires and all of these different things that they'll ask you for, because it's one way to recruit them because you want to get
Yeah.
them interested.
Sometimes just getting them excited for it, like, I don't know how many times people were like, "Oh man, that is badass. You fly a helicopter to a fire and then you go fight a fire." They're like, "That is an awesome job." I'm like, "You know what? It is. I'm a little kid when I'm in the helicopter and we're flying to it, and it's encompassing like, hey, like, yeah, like the job is serious. I take it serious, but yeah, it's fun. Like there's certain fun components to it, and that kind of showing that personality to him, like saying, "Hey, I love my job." Like, yeah, there's certain parts where it's really hot and I might be squealing like a little pig trying to get away from the hotness. And then I'm like, "Oh, I'm a little bit miserable in this heat. Let me reassess and go back." But it's also like, you know what? Those are the moments where I'm like, this is what I'm training for. And when you look overall in that aspect, like, yeah, it's the fun of the job. It's how you portray yourself to the job. Because if I came out there and in public and I seemed like a miserable sap in front of people and they're like, "Oh, he definitely doesn't like his job." Are they going to come want to do what we're doing? So, and there's that honest factor too, right? There's pros and cons to every job, the drama factor or however you want to put it, or human factors, as we can put it. There's all those factors that are incorporated in every job. But if you look at the overall and what you're doing for your job and how you're doing it, that's a huge thing. That's a huge selling point and not even selling point. It's just a huge point to get recruits in, and wanting to fight fires.
You know, it's a team effort.
Yeah.
And battalion chief collaboration is what I want to ask you about next.
Hmm.
And that's you recently co-trained alongside Battalion Chief Shane Willis.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what did you learn from that partnership about mentoring new firefighters? Speaking of the young people.
Yeah. So the great part, Shane Willis, he's probably one of the youngest battalion commanders I think we've ever seen. He's earned his position. He's a great firefighter. He used to be the training officer in Laurel, and kind of sitting down and listening to him. I'm constantly calling him for advice, like, "Hey, you know, I did this. I think I kind of messed up." And he's honest with me. And he's like, "Yeah, you kind of messed up on that. But hey, here's the things you can do to remedy that." So, um, building up from him being my mentor, it has allowed me to realize, okay, I can make mistakes and I can move forward with those mistakes and try to prevent those mistakes from being made in the future or by my crew or by our crew. Um, and collaborating, like in the Marines, it was always nice to see that sergeant major, that master sergeant, or whoever down in the line, kind of running and gunning with you. Shane's a huge advocate on that. He wants to be down there. Obviously, he has to do a little bit more administrative and leadership type stuff, but he wants to be down there, with his team and showing them, "Hey, like, I'm here for you." And that's a huge thing. I mean, even just recently, we had we were doing some chainsaw training, and it was huge for the community, first off, because it's a neighbor, and she has some really dead trees that are threatening her house if they fall. And we're like, "Okay, cool, we'll go check them out, see what we can do to start helping, and we can use it as a training opportunity for the newer firefighters as well." And we collaborated on that. We sat and made a safety and operations plan, and we really set gold to that training, and that can go back to that circle back to that recruiting component, or that maintaining your crew. When they had that training, that's all they talked about. They're like, "This was the coolest thing ever. We seen him drop a huge tree, and they just had a good time." And then they seen us do it safely. They seen us do it, with
And you
precision.
helped
And
that woman in her house because she didn't have a solution.
yep, and we helped her out. And I mean, and she's a big advocate of the Laurel Fire Department. And like, we do nothing but try to always better ourselves, right? And having that collaboration with the White Hats. I mean, even our chief, he's wonderful in what he does. Like, I can sit there and develop a proposal for him, be like, "Hey, I think this would be a good idea," and he'll look at it and yeah, do it, and trust me to it. And I'm like, oh, he's trusting me completely to this full role and responsibility. I'm doing it, like, so, um, that's having that trust and that confidence in your team, that trickle down training
Yeah.
and that mentorship. Those are all important. Hey, brother, can you grab my phone? Can you throw it on mute? Sorry, my phone keeps going. I
It's
apologize.
all
I
good.
normally have it
I
on
can't hear
mute.
it on my end, so you're good.
Okay.
So, talking about training, and there's tried and true, and then there's new. For example, innovation in wildlife firefighting, with climate shifts causing more intense wildfires. And I recently saw something on TV that I was watching something about the weather, and they were saying they expect a really intense wildfire season, unfortunately, this year. So, how is your team adapting tactics to recruit specialized talent and ensure they stay ready? People who are
Yeah.
specialized in areas.
Absolutely. Our team specifically, um, and we've been hearing that a lot too, and sometimes we don't want to discredit when we hear that stuff. It's like, the Cowboys fans saying that they're going to win every year.
Right.
They keep saying, like, hey, this is going to be the most intense fire season. But we look at the factors, like we look at our dead fuel models and all the different factors and weather and everything. And a huge thing we're implementing for our team this year, especially if the weather is going to be variable as it is, and we're going to be in a helicopter, is constantly watching and maintaining that weather forecast. Looking and seeing what we're anticipating in local areas and looking, you know, backwards, like, okay, hey, the last 10 years, where were these fires most commonly in the most intense fire years? Where okay, these fires are pretty bad over here, so we can kind of hone in and grid on that section and say, all right, this is the weather that had in this section where the most intense fires were. All right, hey, let's see if we can do a cross comparison analysis on that and really dive into that and see if that's a possibility this year. So it's that constantly thinking. In fire and even in the military, there's those constant scenarios, right? The what ifs, but the what
Yeah.
ifs are pretty, they can be good too. There's a million of them, but they can be good for training too, or just talking points. Because you never know, you might have that. Oh, we were just talking about what if this happened, and now it's
Hmm.
happening. Now I know how to operate off of that. Um,
Oh yeah. What
and
ifs are great because they
yeah,
help you prepare.
yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, and you're absolutely right. So, our implementation this year is definitely going to be a little bit more in the briefing side in early mornings when their fire activity might not be as intense, where we're concentrating for 2 or 3 hours, going to some of the different areas maybe we've seen fires more often, and
Hmm.
paying attention to those fuel models, paying attention to what's being built out there, the human factors out there, uh, weather behavior, all that stuff, like, um, I always say, it would probably take a 10 to 20 year degree to make a firefighter, because, we at certain points, we got to be meteorologists, and then we got to be environmentalists, and, all these other different things. But we just scratch the surface in what we do, and try to learn and adapt as quick as possible to, our area and understanding our area. And I think the best way we can do that again is, and maybe I'm biased as a training officer, but training, so
Speaking of which, mentorship philosophy. Whether in rookie, it's a rookie straight out of school or on a helipad, you mentor emerging talent, right?
mhm.
So, what core lessons do you instill to ensure they build a lasting?
That's a good question.
What's a good lesson to really make sure that it lasts, they last?
I think the biggest thing that for me to make sure it lasts and sticks to them is understanding how I react to if they ask a question on something that I feel like they should already know, but also remember, hey, maybe they haven't seen it as often, or maybe, running a pump, for instance, maybe they haven't done that in a couple years because they've been on the helicopter. Um, Come to me, yeah, hey, let's answer your question and be humble about it. Be like, hey, that's okay. I'm grateful you came to me so I can give you a refresher and kind of get you back on the training wheels for this and moving forward. And I think enveloping that that personality where they feel comfortable to come to you to ask questions. Because if I dog them down and say, you should already know that you're wasting my time. It's going to turn them off, and it's going to make them want to go elsewhere or not want to learn more at all.
You're
And
being
getting rid
smart.
of that, yeah, getting rid of that mentality
It's
of
people
hey,
skills.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just a couple more things. Two more questions.
Perfect.
Looking ahead for LVFD and DNRC, as you plan for the future, what initiatives will be most critical to sustain and grow your firefighting and hell attack crews over the next decade? I mean, how are you going to, what do you think you'll do to bring in more people over the next 10
Oh,
years?
absolutely. As far as Laurel and DNRC, I can't really speak to for. It's more of a state agency for Laurel. Building a rural wildfire program, having a fuel mitigations team where we can go to the different houses, assess them, and help them kind of do some clearing and get their houses ready in the instance there is a fire in their area. I think that's the biggest 5 to 10 year plan that Laurel needs, especially in its AO and then the surrounding areas of operation with it. Building that rural program that actually we can go contract out engines and start bringing money in too, so we can afford for more protection for our firefighters, and B, for our community. And I that's the next biggest move that Laurel does need to do, is have those more rural protection agencies in that area.
Okay, I saved the best question or my
All
favorite
right.
question for last.
Yes.
Okay, Reno, you are so passionate about what you do. I mean, it's come through from you like throughout this whole thing today. I mean, it's really it's rare. It's refreshing and it's nice. So let me ask you, Reno, what do you love most about what you do? I mean, what gets you out of bed and says, I can't wait to do this today? What are
Yeah.
you passionate
Uh,
most about? All of this.
that's a hard one. I think the biggest one is that
It doesn't have to be one. You can have a
yeah,
list.
yeah. That purpose, having that purpose and that drive to help those around you, and be there for those who, it could be on their worst day. Or it's that purpose. And I got to say, and I got to be honest, selfishly, that adrenaline rush too,
Sure.
but what gets me out of bed is making sure that we're setting up the foundation for the future generations too. Because I'm getting up there. I've done my time in the military, in fire and in age, and I want to make sure that prepared for the future, and that I did my part. So one of the biggest things that drove me on that was when I had my firstborn was when he was born in 2020, and then I have two other children. Seeing that, and they're like, "Oh,
Congratulations, Dad.
hey, thank you."
Hey,
It's
you
like
got a big day coming up this weekend.
yeah, yeah. So I want to teach them everything I have, and being able to have them be that humble human being, that person that if somebody calls them in the middle of the night, you're there for them. And that's I think that's what drives me the most, is just having that purpose, that whatever knowledge I have, and handing that out, and again, building for the future.
Awesome. Reno, thank you for joining me on the David Alemian Show today. I mean, this was just a fun interview. You were just great. I appreciate it. You have so many interesting stories. I mean, you were just holding me right there. I want to thank you, and I hope we'll get to talk again in the future. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.